Now that we're working with exponents, let's make sure you know how to use exponents on your calculator. So going through, a couple things I want to point out. If we look at a problem like the 8 to the 4th, going through, that does mean 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, but who wants to go through and do all of that whenever we can use the exponent button here? This upside down V is known as the caret button. So we do 8 with the caret, and you can see it kicks us up to having a little spot there that we can put our exponent in, so we can then put in the exponent of 4, press enter, and we get our answer. It also knows the order of operations. So if we look at a problem like the 7 to the 5th minus 5 squared, we can go ahead and type that in like we see it. But as we are trying to get out of the exponent here, you can see that little arrow that's blinking there. We're going to hit the right arrow to get out of the exponent function and then continue the problem. Minus 5. Now the squared, I can do the caret and press 2, but squared is probably the most popular exponent used, so TI gave it its own button. Right down here along the left-hand side, diagonal to the 7, you can see the x squared button. And it does not give us an x. What it does, it gives us the squared, so we can type in the 5, just press that button, and the squared comes up automatically. Press enter, and it will do the math for us. Now, the problem that is probably the most controversial is this guy here. Because when we read this here, negative 4 squared, what we are really talking about is doing negative 4 times negative 4, which we all know is 16. But if I go through and I type in negative 4 squared, whether I use that button or the caret, what happens is the calculator gives me back the answer of negative 16. The calculator knows the order of operations, so it's interpreting negative 4 squared as the negative of 4 squared, which is not what we want. We really mean for negative 4 squared to actually mean negative 4 times negative 4, so we need to make sure that we put that into our calculator that way. So whenever we want to use our squared button with a negative, you really want to make sure you're using parentheses. Now they do put parentheses around that negative to remind you, but to get the correct answer here, we want to make sure that we are putting that negative 4 in parentheses so that we get that answer of 16. So let's be clear. Whenever we see something like this written, we actually mean this to the calculator. So please make sure you're being careful when you're entering that. Last but not least is we are also going to be studying negative exponents this year. So on our calculator, we can go ahead and go through and type in a negative exponent. Okay. When we press enter, it does give us back, in this case, a decimal. If you're looking to see what that is as a fraction, I'd remind you that if you go to our fraction button, which remember is hidden underneath alpha and y equals. So if I go alpha y equals, you can see option 4 has a F, arrows, and D's, and what that is saying is that if I press option 4, it's going to convert a fraction to a decimal or a decimal to a fraction. So it's going to take my answer here and it's going to do the opposite of it. So since it sees the answer as a decimal, it's going to go through and convert it to a fraction, and we can see that 2 to the power of negative 3 is actually equivalent to 1/8, and more on that throughout this unit.